What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Empowered Athlete Podcast. In today's episode, I have a special guest, Mr. Matthew Machado. And in this episode, we're going to have a conversation, an open, vulnerable conversation around his story, his experience with bullying, depression, suicide, and how jiu-jitsu has ultimately saved his life and helped him. And I know that he's not the only one that experiences that. I initially saw his post with Submit the Stigma, and I just knew I wanted to bring his story on because I know it's very relatable and a lot of people struggle with mental health. And it's important to recognize that, sometimes these things don't go away, and it's managing them and having the tools and resources and support and community to be able to support you through that. And so I wanted him to share his story. So a little bit about Matt. He started training martial arts, beginning with Tae Kwon Do, myself included, at the age of 7. Yes. At Semper Tae Kwon Do. He holds the rank of first degree black belt. He started training at Savery Brazilian Jiu Jitsu in 2012. And he currently is a brown belt in Jiu Jitsu and a black belt in kickboxing. He's been teaching Jiu Jitsu and kickboxing classes at Savery BJJ since 2019 and has been a martial art instructor since the age of 12. He currently lives in Massachusetts. He has a Bachelor of Science in Nursing degree from the University of Massachusetts Dartmouth, and currently works as a clinical staff nurse at Emma Pendelton Bradley Hospital in Riverside, Rhode Island, on the Children's Inpatient unit, and serves as an adjunct clinical instructor for the health assisting program at Diman Regional Vocational Technical High School in Fall River, Massachusetts. And his goals include going back to school to obtain his Doctorate of Nursing degree and become a nurse educator and incorporate Brazilian Jiu Jitsu as an alternative treatment modality for children and adolescents who suffer from various mental illnesses, including anxiety, depression, and PTSD. So the work that you are doing and aspire to do is absolutely needed. And I'm so excited to have this conversation. So welcome, Matt.
Thank you so much.
I'm really excited. So why don't we just start always from the bare bones for people to get to know you a little bit more, and just start with your story growing up with being bullied and how that led you to join martial arts and ultimately jiu-jitsu. That is usually the story for a lot of people, how they get into martial arts. But I'd love to hear yours.
Perfect. All right. So funny story. I was in elementary school, like I said, like 7 or 8. And my mom, my late mother, she had her boss's grandkids did Tae Kwon Do, and it was like the old school demo at the local mall. And she's like, "Oh, Matt, you want to go see some karate?" Yep, she used karate.
Yes.
And you want to see people break boards? Lost me at karate, got me at breaking boards. So we go to the mall. I see it. I'm like, "This is awesome." I ran away from my mom to the front desk lady, who was actually the owner's wife. And I was like, "Sign me up." And she goes, "Okay, buddy, where's your mom?" And my mom's like, "Oh my God, Matt, what are you doing?" And she hustles back. And needless to say, I signed up that day, and then I start that following Monday. Wasn't bullied at the time. I ended up, I think, maybe a couple months into training, I started getting some spots on my face. Lo and behold, later on, it becomes known as hydrovacciniforme. Basically meant my body couldn't absorb UVB light the right way, and it would express itself as pimples on my face, but would be 10 times itchier than poison ivy, and it would show up as a scab. So it'd be super itchy. You can't really see it right now on the camera, but if I were to go up close, you see some scar tissue that would look like it's from acne, but it was from that. So I would be called pizza face. And then if I picked the scabs off because it was insanely itchy, Freddy Krueger, the names didn't stop. But that was after I started training. And obviously that sucked. And then being the shorter, chubbier kid that now has something for people to make fun of. Yeah, it didn't go so well. So training was definitely an outlet to help boost my self-confidence. And the aspect of all right, if this kid puts his hands on me, I'm gonna throw down. And my family, the bright side of what they raised me with is if a child puts their hands on you, you won't get in trouble if you defend yourself. So if they strike you, it's not Cobra Kai, don't strike first, but if they hit you, throw down, we won't get mad at you. You start using your martial arts as a bullying tactic, yeah, we're gonna have some problems. And honestly, it goes without saying, because my instructors, one of them was a professor of history, like a history professor. And then the other one was like a local police officer that was involved with like his local school department. So there was no way of me getting around being the school bully.
Yeah.
So did Tae Kwon Do for about 8-9 years. And then, the bullying subsided a little bit as I went into middle school. Because instead of being the short, chubby kid, I was now the smart, funny one that people wanted to be around. And by the time I hit middle school, my diagnosis, it was like some flare-ups here and there, but I had my treatment plan very solid.
Yeah.
So like that, like the bullying basically subsided, but then like more family trauma, generational, and then just like, and when I say trauma, actually, let me do a little bit of a sidebar. Trauma can be something, it's any life event that changes the way you think. Most of us, when we say the word trauma, they think, oh, it only has to be with soldiers or rape or anything that is high voltage.
100%.
Trauma, and I'm going to translate this maybe into what we call ACEs or adverse childhood event. What could be trauma is you're at your local library book club and your parent or legal guardian forgets to pick you up, or they're a half hour late and they don't tell you. That's traumatic.
Yeah.
Or, when it's your birthday, but your family cares more about you going to like your cousin's first communion party. So your birthday gets put to the wayside. We're not going to really celebrate your birthday. We're not going to talk about that much because this is priority. And that was very much the case for me growing up. Birthday always took second place to something else. So as I got into my adolescent years, when, I first met my fiance, she's like, dude, why don't you care about your birthday? And I was like, dude, it's just another day. Don't care about it. And she's always, I love her to death for this. Still to this day, always goes out of her way to make my birthday like the most special day of the year. It got annoying at first because I was like, I don't like this, because I've always just like put myself on the back burner for everyone else. So to have her like cheerlead me in that regard, like it was frustrating at first, but now I'm like, you know what? It's cute the way she preps. I let her have it. Now, adverse childhood events. So stuff like that, some trauma, family trauma grew more prevalent as I entered middle school. There was definitely some stuff in elementary. Middle school started to pick up. When I started high school, it's gonna be the best man for my wedding and my lifelong training partner, Jordan. We, shout out to you, buddy, found Danny's Academy, which at the time was called Best Way Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. I was a freshman, he was a sophomore, and we both had our black belts. And at our academy, our Taekwondo place, we were doing more teaching, less training. And that was frustrating.
Like, what happens once you get your black belt? It's like you automatically get into this role of teaching.
Yeah. And I wouldn't mind it, except the fact I was 14,
Yeah.
And like our instructors would be in the office doing whatever the hell it was. And it's like, we're at that prime where like, we really want to train. And also our gym, we were the oldest and the biggest. So like our training partners were ourselves, and it got kind of boring. The nice part is one of our instructors had his black belt in judo. And then he said black belt in like small circle jiu-jitsu, which I think kind of just went along with like, you do a takedown, there's a wrist lock and some basic stuff.
Yeah.
The funny part about me and Jordan is he is a phenomenal kickboxer. He's a little taller, he's lean, he's fast, solid with his kicks. I probably gotten some CTE from like all the spinning hook kicks. They're solid. The nice part is sometimes they'd let us do basically like a little MMA, whatever. So like if we got to the ground, we could grapple and strike, do whatever. Jordan would always whoop my ass, stand up. But if I got a leg, took him down, and then we start to like ground and pound or grapple, I noticed I had a little more of an advantage. And I'm like, this is awesome. I'm getting beat up less. And I feel like I have a leg up. So once he said, hey, dude, I found a jiu-jitsu academy, I'm like, yes, this is solid. We found Danny's, and he was out of almost like a garage in Tiverton, Rhode Island. And I'll never forget my first class. We go over like a baseball slide escape from turtle.
Okay.
My training partner was about double my age. He was had like 100 plus pounds on me. And he goes, buddy, the only way you're going to learn this technique the right way is a fat guy like me on top of you. And I'm like, okay. You put pressure. And I was like, first off, this is jiu-jitsu. So honestly, anything you say or do to me, I'm going to just like absorb like a sponge. I love it, even if you beat me up. And like, he did no mercy. And I'm like, dude, this sucks. And then lo and behold, after a few reps, like I started to get it. And I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. if I can do this on a dude that's much heavier and stronger than me, if I have to do this at school, or if I have to do it, like if I'm training with somebody my weight and size, I'm going to blast.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to be super easy. It's like, you know, Tae Kwon Do, you do kicks with the ankle weights for drilling. You take the ankle weight off and you feel like you're Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
So it was like the same regard. And, you know, been in love ever since. Like I said, I've been with Danny for 10 years now. I help teach their Tiny Tots Jiu-Jitsu as well as our kids kickboxing class. And then I fill in for our juniors and the adult kickboxing class when necessary or whatever. So been with him for the past 10 years, not going anywhere unless I move. And that's going to be a hard bargain. And it's just been great.
Amazing. I love that so much. Yeah, I can definitely resonate with the whole birthday thing. That was me for a very long time. Like, it's almost like I would actually get like this weird, it's not seasonal depression because it was only around my birthday, but it was like celebratory depression or something. It's like once I knew my birthday was like a few days away, like I would just get really quiet. I would kind of be really reserved. And I just like was in the same mindset. Like, it's just another day, you know, I didn't want to, because, you know, mainly because it was, again, there was always some type of argument or traumatic experience in the family around that. So it's like, well, it's just better for me to not even get amped up about my birthday so that I'm not disappointed than to just fully enjoy it. So I totally resonate with that. That has been a unwiring process for sure. And I love that you mentioned and just kind of clarified your own almost like definition, but like it's absolutely true around trauma. Like what we often, like how I often explain it almost is like this big T and little T trauma, and big T trauma is kind of like what most people associate with trauma. Like you said, like just like those sexual experiences or domestic abuse or something like that. And then little T trauma is like the trauma that we're just victim to with just being human beings, and like the conditioning and the little things here and there where we're just like gaslit, and just like those little things that are just like compounding when we're young. And it still affects us because it created, like you said, like an emotional charge that our body did not forget. And so it affected us. So yeah, I really love that definition. I'd love for you to dive a little deeper into what that family dynamic was for you growing up, and perhaps the specific trauma that you've experienced in that, and how it impacted your self-image and mindset.
Not a problem. Before I get into that, let me just take my puppies out of their crate. I thought they'd be good. But I'm going to let them get their little zoomies out. So give me just one moment. Hi, guys. Yeah. You can move. That's okay. So, all right. Thank you for your patience. Now, family trauma. So when I was younger, I was sexually assaulted by a family member. Now, they thought it was like, hey, let's use Matt as practice so that way, like, when I go with people my own age, I know what I'm doing. Me, oblivious, I'm like, what? Huh? Like, I don't know. I was like 6, 7, didn't know any better. And then, like, I would just, I joke about it, but I was like, yeah, I didn't really have a childhood because I was always surrounded by people older and exposed to, like, adult things way too young, whether it be, like, exposed to porn or sexual acts, shit like that. Excuse my French.
Totally allowed here.
Oh, perfect. There we go. Okay. So, when I would act and behave around kids my own age, they're like, what? Or like, Matt's cool because he knows about this or says that. And I'm like, I guess. And I was like, oh, that's cool that they think I'm cool and funny about this. But like, you know, when stuff like that happens to you, you kind of put it in the back burner because you're also too young to process it.
100%.
And then also, like, no one's going to believe you. You know, it was almost like that victim culture where it's like, no one's going to believe me when I said this happened to me. So I'm just going to, like, lock it in, swallow the key, throw it back. And then maybe 20 years after, you know, I might talk about it if somebody either A, believes me or finds comfort in, like, being allowed me to process this. So yeah, there was that. Or, like, exposed to, like, substance use and shit like that. Like, a lot younger. Now, culturally, alcohol is, like, just a soft example. It's more embraced. It's easier. Like, when you're a kid, you know, you could have, like, a little sip of wine when your family has, like, a steak dinner or something.
Yeah.
Like that, like, culturally, that was fine. Translate, you know, people got confused. Like, you know, when I went to high school and college and when you had, like, parties and people were drinking, like, I was just like, okay, this is nothing different. you know, the little joke is like, you know, when you're in Portugal, as long as you're as tall as the bar stool, you can drink, because we knew moderation, and we knew that, like, I've had a glass of wine for family dinner, or like I learned at a young age, I mean, it's not a bad thing, where like, if you are to drink more, and I knew that, like, as I go into my adult years, I'm staying where I'm at. Like, I'm going to stay at the friend's house, not going to drive, not going to do anything, or find somebody else to, like, you know, be a DD for me. Substance, like, and also on terms of like substances, like I was exposed to weed and cocaine like early. Not that I did it, but like I'd had adults like cut it in front of me, or like roll shit up, and then translate to that. Like there was a moment in high school. So I went to a Voc, and we were playing. Like I was playing with silly putty from our auto body shop, and like playing with the putty, and then had the squeegee. But I just mindlessly like was like playing with it, but it looked like I was cutting coke. And one of my classmates was like, "Dude, what are you doing?" And I'm like, I'm like, "Oh snap!" And I was like, I don't know, I'm just doing whatever, stuff like that. And I'm like,
So there's like a lot of modeling.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't like verbal, there was a lot of modeling of little things that you picked up that you thought were just like normal behaviors, but when you were kind of integrated into like the other people of your age and peers, they were kind of like, what is this?
I'm not going to say it because I don't want to get my family in trouble. And then it also goes to that. So growing up, I don't know if it's just being a male or just culturally, like we just didn't talk about our shit. My family is like very, don't air your dirty laundry out. Or maybe it's just like ego.
Maybe
where I was like, a little bit of both, where I didn't want to divulge and be like, hey, yeah, my family member sexually assaulted me, or hey, yeah, family member was cutting coke and rolling the joint in front of me. When like, yeah, those are adult things that you know, I mean, cannabis, okay, coke, you have your own vice, whatever. Don't do that in front of a child. Or like I had something where like another family member had an affair, and I like was sitting on the side of the family member, when they were like video chatting the mistress. They're like, yo, I can't do this, da 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 da. And I'm like, what am I sitting next to? What is happening?
Yeah.
So like when I joke around with my friends, I'd be like, yeah, I didn't have a childhood. They're like, what? They're like, oh, you've never watched this Disney movie? I'm like, no, I watched Girls Gone Wild.
Yeah.
And they look at me like I have 7 heads, and I'm like, dude, that like when I was 7 or 8, my Christmas gift was like Grand Theft Auto 3.
Yeah.
Not Crash Bandicoot. I wish. So like now I'm definitely compensating of, you know, healing my inner child, which is phenomenal. Do it. But it was like stuff like that. And then on some more trauma dumping, had like experience where like what? One sec. Sorry. So not for nothing. My aunt was like going through a divorce. Now this is minus like other things that went on. And she was cool, loved her to death until she lived at my house. And this was like when I was in 8th grade, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Aunt's gonna be here for a few months while she does whatever she's got to do. And she went from really cool to really heinous. And it would just like really like clap at any, like, you know, obviously when you're in early adolescence, like you might have some arguments and bickering with your parents, like that's natural defiance. But like she tried to act like a second mom, and it just wasn't cool.
Yeah.
I hated the shit out of it. And then, you know, that way, like when she left, I was like, oh my God. And then it started happening. Like came back to the house senior year of high school when, you know, because like got back together with her partner or whatever. And then senior year of high school happened again, but this time it was longer, and like divorce was going to be legit. And I'm like, fuck my life. Like this was terrible, you know? Oh, hi. It was absolutely terrible. And I was like, fuck this. I can't. Nope. You're frustrating as hell. Where there was like one time where my sister and her boyfriend at the time, I was like walking my dog, and I'm like, dude, I'm either gonna put my head through a wall, run away, or do something. And I'm like, if I didn't have Otis on my leash, like I can't do this. And he was like, dude, nope, it's not worth your energy. Walk your dog, blow out your steam, do what you got to do, come back in the house, rejuvenate. And that's why I always like the mats, whether, you know, Tae Kwon Do earlier, Jiu Jitsu now, you know, I could let off steam training. So when there was like shit going on in the house or growing up, like just dealing with like school bullying or whatever the case would have been, I always had the mat as my outlet.
Yeah.
So it would definitely a lot. And in terms of now to like bridge a little bit, I don't know if we're going ahead of ourselves, for suicidality. When I got bullied in elementary school just because of that skin condition, I was like, yeah, I should probably kill myself. I don't have to deal with bullying if I do this.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh wait, but if you do that, you can't train or you can't hang out with your dog. And like there was already like those protective factors in place where I was like, yeah, no, I shouldn't kill myself.
Yeah. That's cool.
When I was in middle school, again, still in Tae Kwon Do, I haven't started jiu-jitsu yet. That shit with my aunt went up, and I was like, yeah, kill yourself. This is a lot easier than dealing with this bullshit. And I was like, no, don't do that. You like your training. You have friends now because you're not getting bullied. You're doing fairly well in your training. You're in your, your academy's competition class, like team or whatever. You're traveling. You're doing what you enjoy doing. Nah, don't kill yourself. High school, same thing. But now we have jiu-jitsu. And it was basically the same thing where I have the outlets for the mat, and that was my, that was my end all be all coping skill.
Yeah.
And then in undergrad, this is where it got a little dicey, where now nursing school, love it, hate to love it. Like I didn't think that because I went to a voc school that it would translate well into college. So I lived in the library. I was fortunate enough to be able to, like, because I did that, my GPA was solid, so I got scholarships. I didn't want my parents to pay a dime. And it wasn't because like they would use it to clap back at me or use it as power. No, I just, like, for me, up to high school was free. This is my responsibility. And I found at a young age that, like, I take pride in earning my shit. Of like, my first job working at McDonald's bought me my Mustang. Like, nice. I took pride in like earning my stuff. So I didn't want my parents to pay a dime because I wanted to know that I worked my ass off and this will be the end goal. On that note, I couldn't afford to train because by the time I got to college, I was paying for my training. Again, it was one of those things where I didn't want my mom to pay my tuition. And that's where we went. So I got super involved, whether it be like, this university's nursing student association, which then translated to the state level. Because of part of my treatment when I was younger, I had a lot of interactions with Boston Children's Hospital. And we had a organization called Dance Marathon, which basically, like, you had a big event at the, end of the year, whenever you decide to have your event, and all the funds would go to Boston Children's. And I'm like, oh snap, what a perfect way for me to give back to the hospital that almost helped cure me, or basically did. So got involved with that, got involved with the Student Nurse Association, studied a hell ton, and then I still worked as like a nurse's aide at like a local community hospital. I had no time to train unless it was spring break, Christmas break, or the summer.
Yeah.
And while I was, and then I did a lot of things like with my church and stuff like that. And while I was doing things that I enjoyed, it was draining. And then I didn't have jiu-jitsu to like burn off the stress gene.
Yeah.
That's where like more intrusive thoughts about suicidality would happen. Like maybe I would like drive home after being super stressed out from studying or whatever. And then it'd be like, it would get, when I say methodical as like the Submit the Stigma post, it would be like, I wonder how fast I can drive into this tree to kill myself without any pain. Or it was like, hey, I'm taking a bath to relax, drown yourself. And I'm like, whoa, what is this? Or like, I'll never forget, like it was a fairly traumatic one time. Shit went down at mom's birthday party at a local Chili's where I literally contemplated, how can I hang myself from the Chili's bathroom? And it was like shit like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, this is not okay. But I never did anything with one.
Yeah.
At that time, I was with my fiance for a few years and I would talk to her about it. And she's like, dude, you need some help. But it was hard for me to accept the help because I'm like, you're the only person I talk to about this stuff because my family is just like, or it was like, shh, because they didn't want, others to think that Matt has problems.
Yeah.
So.
Newsflash, we all have problems.
Yeah, exactly. So like culturally and being a male, I was like double fucked.
Yeah.
And
that's
it
exactly
didn't
why
take.
I wanted to bring you on, because of that too. Like, especially in jiu-jitsu and, you know, with men, it's a great outlet for them to release that stress and, you know, even release stored trauma that they don't even know, you know, about, because of the movement of the body and the breathing and all of that. But it's more so like this culturally accepted type of belief system of like, don't show emotion, don't express, feel, nothing can be wrong. And it's really detrimental to your own well-being.
Yeah, you got to like white knuckle and just go through it. Yeah. Fuck no. No. Now, I think it's Jamie Kilstein, right? One of the guys in our jiu-jitsu community, I think that's his name. Bear me wrong. Where it's like, he mentioned one time, like, jiu-jitsu is therapeutic, not therapy. And I was like, oh shit, yeah, that makes sense. Because like for the longest time, I would use martial arts as the outlet that, okay, I felt better after training, so I don't need to talk about family trauma. I don't need to talk about the stresses of life that just make me think differently and it might be unsafe or just really uncomfortable. And it didn't take, it took a long time so after I graduated nursing school, my mom gets diagnosed with stage 4 bile duct cancer. And then I was like, oh, that's great. Like, I spend all my time in the library, not that much time with my family. Now that I have the time, mom gets a terminal illness. This is great. Benefit, I first started working overnights at the hospital. So like I was able to take my mom to chemo, the doctor's appointments, X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
During that time, aunt started getting real nasty where like she wanted to dictate my mom's treatment plan. And my mom, I love her, God rest her soul, kind of just did whatever my aunt said and didn't like have autonomy for herself. I don't know if that was family trauma growing up for her, but like mom had no autonomy. And this came especially prevalent like when I had to put my mom on hospice.
Power
where like, where like even she like I had to fill out her advanced directives. I'll never forget like every time when we filled it out, because we had it as a family meeting. I would ask my mom 2 or 3 times and she would always look at my aunt to basically where like my mom made herself a full fucking coat.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, yeah, that's not comfortable. But I respect your wishes, even though they're not really yours. Heavily prevalent like the last few days my mom was alive, where it was like, you know, we're doing around the clock morphine, Ativan, just to keep her body comfortable. And my aunt was snapping at me, being like, "Are you killing your mother?" And I'm like, "No, you're an asshole. Like, I'm making her comfortable."
Yeah.
And this would like heavily then like she would talk shit about like, oh, like what kind of nurse are you, X, Y, Z, and I'm like, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Don't discredit my ability as a nurse. It's hard. It was hard enough. Well, on that note, trauma. Detour. This was hi. So when I was about in the ICU, this was like during height of COVID, my patients are dying left and right. My mom's cancer, it like the chemo wasn't working. We had to switch over to different treatment. My dad gets a major heart attack. My godmother dies unexpectedly. And I'm like, oh, fuck, this is too much. So like had a mental breakdown, quit, and then took a couple months off before I found Bradley. And that was like a hard pill to swallow. And even my mom at first, because like she was still learning oriented, and she's like, oh, well, you're still going to be a nurse and X, Y, Z. And I'm like, dude, shut up. This is just too much. I love you. You're a dying woman. I can't be mad at you, but I'm going to be mad at you a little bit for this. Like I need to go through my shit. Because then for her and my dad, they didn't want to take the blame as the reason why I quit was because of their illnesses. Which at one point, like it was part of it, but it was also just too much for me. I was in a field that I honestly found out I didn't like. And I had this shit going on where like I couldn't shut the switch off. Like I was a nurse at home and then I was a nurse at work. My parents, my patients are dying left and right. And now potentially I have that constant anxiety that my parents are going to die at like a split second.
Yeah.
So I said, forget this. And then more suicidal ideation come up. Super depressed. I guess the benefit of like my dad having the heart attack and I quit my job at the same time is like, it was easy for me to help that like intensive treatment regimen where like we had people at the house taking to all the appointments, making sure the meds were set, stuff like that. Then I found Bradley, job and population I love to work with. And that was around the time where like mom's cancer really started getting worse. And then obviously she passed. There was that what it was. And immediately after, I shit you not, bury my mom on a Wednesday. That following Saturday, my aunt starts being an asshole. So I said, you know what? Fuck this. My mom is gone. I was nice to you out of respect and love for my mother.
Yeah.
I'm done being nice. And that's when I really started setting hard boundaries. And that's when they're like, whoa, Matt, what's wrong with you? What are you doing? I'm like, nah, dude, I'm starting my own autonomy now. You can't control me. You want to say something? I'll clap back at you.
Yeah.
And it's not like, you know, you punch me, I punch you. It's like, no, I'm not standing for your bullshit.
I think it's important you said that, because that is what people oftentimes associate with like setting boundaries. It's like, I don't want to be mean. I don't want to be rude. I don't want to seem like I'm being aggressive.
Yep.
But like, that's completely different.
This is my limit.
Being aggressive and like hitting somebody back. Like, obviously that's not the best strategy to get your needs met and to be heard, but you can absolutely set boundaries, and they are not one and the same. You can still set boundaries in a loving way towards yourself, but still stand firm to create that space from other people who are not adding value.
100%. And then it was like, so mom passed, set those limits to basically where my aunt and some other family members just I didn't associate with. Yeah. And it was, you know, I mainly just hung, you know, I promised my mom, like, I'll take care of dad and I'll look after my godson. That's it. That's it. I'll promise you that. And that's no more. Yeah. Dad's fine now. He's good. He's stable. My godson, great. After that, and it's funny because I learned this concept of family when I was in nursing school. I never thought about that, but this, and it could have just been trauma related, where family is not who you share blood with, but it's who you bleed for. I was like, oh shit, that makes sense. Because throughout that time when, you know, the suicidal ideations were always at its peak or whatever, I couldn't talk to my family about it. I found the comfort and resolution in my friends, and then in my fiance and stuff like that. And then eventually starting therapy, which at first for me didn't work, so stopped it. And
dive into that. I'm definitely interested to hear a little bit about that for sure.
Yeah.
And
oops, sorry.
Oh no, I was gonna say, like, so obviously with jiu-jitsu, right? Jiu-jitsu, although it can be this outlet and it can be a very helpful like coping mechanism, you kind of mentioned for a moment, and I just wanted to highlight this idea that like it can be, the perfect phrase was that like most people are using it as therapy instead of just as a therapeutic approach. Yep. And I think it's really important to kind of highlight that it's not therapy. You still have to address your shit. You still have to get support and help, although it's still helping you. And some people use it as a coping mechanism in the sense where they feel like it's all they need to be able to like heal and move forward. And, you know, for those listening, I want you to really take that home, is that, you know, jiu-jitsu is therapeutic for us, but it's not therapy, you know? So if you do struggle with those things, it's important to get outside support by medical professionals that can actually create a protocol for you and a plan and get to know you personally and be able to work with you and your system to be able to, you know, help you, because jiu-jitsu isn't the cure all.
Yep, for sure. Therapy at first didn't work for me. My first therapist, I felt like I was talking to myself, maybe because I had good insight or whatever, that like I'm spending time talking to myself without really getting like a protocol to work with. It was a great mention. So I stopped it after a few months. Fast forward this year, that transitioning into moving out of my family, you know, my childhood home, and now I live with my fiance. At first, like at that time, there was like some stuff going on where like mom died, we needed some renovations on the house. Aunt didn't want to pay a dime, even though house on her. There's some stuff going on, needless to say, where aunt was being an asshole. And then when I told my dad I was moving out, like he had that, you know, I was all he had. And it wasn't bad, but it was almost like started being a little bit of a dirtbag. But then like, oh great, now my only solace is leaving me. And I like try to reiterate it until I was blue in the face, like, dude, I'm moving 7 minutes away from this house.
Yeah.
We're good. But it took a lot. And at that, like, again, there was the family stuff. And then my dad getting like butthurt about me moving out. I was taking more responsibility at work that I didn't feel prepared for, but they were like, no, you're good. And I'm like, I don't feel it. And they're like, no, trust me, we would not let you do. And that's the lovely part about where I work is like, if you're ready for something, they'll, you know, help you progress. But if they don't feel you're ready, they'll hold you back. So I was like all that going on. And that's what I was doing additionally, being a clinical instructor for my high school, where again, I almost fell into the nursing school's trap where I was so busy. I had no, like, I trained here and there, but it was a lot less. And the stress was just like, fuck. So then another mental breakdown for about, and I was like, this is the worst timing when I'm moving out of my house.
What year is this?
This was this year. So,
okay.
yeah, this was like, I was done teaching clinical March 30th. April 1st is like when it really fucking hit. Poof. But back, I was doing like my eval. I was like talking to like my manager beginning of January. She's like, how you doing? And I'm like, I feel off. Yeah. I don't know what it is, but like something feels off. And she's like, no, you're doing good. Like you're good at work. Everybody loves you, XYZ. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. I just don't, I feel off. And it was like April, where it was like, where like thought about killing myself every day for 3.5 months. Super depressed. I felt terrible that, you know, I couldn't help around like moving shit and helping set up moving into the house with my fiance. Thank God, her and her family took the reins. They're like, dude, your only means right now is survival. And if you're able to keep yourself alive, we'll take care of the rest.
Awesome.
So I was like, dude,
during this time, that was this year. During this time, like, were you still doing jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, yep, still training, but like I was so depressed I didn't even want to go to the academy. And it was one of those things where like I would do this thing where like I woke up and I'm like, oh God, thank goodness T-minus 12 hours so I can go back to bed.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh shit, I got a coach today. That's in T-minus Tessie. Yeah, I was like T-minus 10 hours. So like now I'm stressed out about, oh God, am I gonna look super depressed when I go coach? I don't want to do that for my kids and ruin it for them. So I'd mask it, do perfectly fine. But like I wouldn't train. I would just coach as my obligation, then go right home.
Yeah.
And it took a while. And you know, I would just do nothing. And then again, it was just basically survival, where I'd wake up and be like, don't kill yourself, don't kill yourself, don't kill yourself, after thinking about 371 ways to do it. But only going to the academy to coach. It's funny.
How do you think jiu-jitsu has helped you in that? Like, if jiu-jitsu has like the benefits it's given you, and has it, you know, it's kind of like in that example you just gave of having an obligation to coach in some way kind of saves you because it's this like,
it was an outlet. So sorry to cut you off, but yeah, no, that's exactly what it did. Is like I'd coach and like I teach the tiny tots, so like 3 to 6 jiu-jitsu, and then my age group that I work with 5 to 6 for kickboxing. That was my serotonin that I need to be like, I feel a little better. I'm not going to kill myself, but like, I just can't do the training for myself. And that was for a little while. What helped springboard, this is kind of funny. What helped springboard it was like after like the first month or two of me doing nothing, my fiance was like, I love you, dude, but we got to figure something out. And that's when I was like, you know, swallow the pill, white knuckles, talk to my PCP being like, dude, I want to kill myself. I need help. And I wasn't doing therapy because I didn't find it to work. Start off on an SSRI, live, laugh, Lexapro. Yeah, it didn't work out for me. If anything, it's like, I don't want to kill myself, but now I have no energy. I'm at 0 miles per hour and I'm stuck in neutral. And it took about a month and a half where I'm like, and it takes a few weeks for psych meds to work anyways. But like after a little while, I talked to my doctor and I'm like, dude, this isn't working. Let's try something different. So then we tried Wellbutrin. Great. And it's ironic where after, like once I started the Wellbutrin, one of my best friends was going through some stuff for her wedding. And my fiance kind of took the reins as kind of like being her main support system. But like for me, it was a motivating factor because like I always made this joke. My girl Beck, she's me with boobs, not to be inappropriate, but like it was separated at birth sort of sibling thing where like we both love coffee and we're, you know, really care about our partners like a ton. So I was like, oh shit, if Beck feels like shit, I got to get out of this run. I got to help Beck the best way we can. To the point where like in a week, me, my fiance and her fiance, now husband, like helped make a bachelorette party out of my backyard in a week. And since then I kind of almost like ran on that mental high of like, do what you got to do to make Beck, because this is all she cares about. Make her wedding the best thing it can be. And then also like in that trajectory, like her now husband was going through some stuff. And I'm like, I gotta make sure she's good and he's good. And it then started to help pick me up. And I don't know whether it was either I had that as my springboard motivating factor or the meds are working or Porque Los Dos, right? Both. To that helps springboard it. And now I feel like I'm on that neutral line where like I'm on meds, not a therapist yet, but once I get, you know, the availability to, because I just now turning 26 next year, go on your own insurance, right? Nice. But like my hospital's health plan is phenomenal. So like once I get that, I'll find one and do both. Because not only where we go to this jiu-jitsu therapeutic, it's not therapy. You also can't expect your friends to listen to your shit. And it's not in the grasp that like they don't want to, but they might not have the profession that first off, they might be going through some shit and they don't have the emotional bandwidth to help you process. And that's not your fault. That's not their fault. Like that is what it is. And you almost got to like kill your ego in the sense where like, okay, maybe a medical professional would be a benefit because they do this as their job.
Yeah.
Their sole responsibility is to help you process through your shit.
Yeah.
And be a better person.
Yeah.
And it's almost like anybody can benefit from therapy because all of us have had shit going on. And again, maybe I say that adverse childhood event, it's not trauma where you got your leg blown off, but like you now have some repercussions for having your birthday be second place.
Yeah.
Or, you know, because you were abused, you might have a really hard time growing bonds with a partner. Or if you were physically abused, you might be more apt to do it to somebody else because that's how love was shown, right?
Exactly.
So having the importance of like finding a professional to talk your shit out, you know, jiu-jitsu is great. I loved it. I will be like a used car salesman for it whenever I talk to somebody that doesn't train. It's a perfect outlet. But there's still some stuff that you got to talk out because there's some lingering effects of how it affects you as an adult.
And one of the things that every single human needs in order to really heal and process these things from our past is something called witnessing. I don't know if you've heard of it before or experienced it in therapy at all, but witnessing is basically like, we can talk about our own thing to ourselves, but really we need to be witnessed. You know, we need to be witnessed by somebody else who's objective to be able to hold that space for us to process. Yes. And it's really, really important part of healing because so many of us are so on this kind of, I don't know, belief or just kind of, it's the ego really of just saying like, I can figure this out on my own. I can heal this on my own, but
exactly what I thought.
Hit a block at one point because you need somebody else to witness, which requires you to kind of surrender a little bit and trust somebody else and to open up to somebody else, which is really scary, but it's literally an essential piece of the cocktail in order to really be able to process those past experiences.
Exactly.
And you had mentioned like some of the tools. So like with therapy, is this like obviously something newer that you've gotten back into? And you also mentioned like the inner child work. So I'm curious what tools you've utilized to support you with this, if those are the tools or if there's other tools.
So I would say the medications definitely help. Once I get the insurance, we'll hop on board with the therapist and I'll deep dive into that of finding one that fits for me. And then just I'm gonna say my family, which are my friends, having their springboard of their love and support. So like when I was going through my shit, they at first, my fiance's always been phenomenal about this. It's like when I was going through it, she would contact all my friends because I would isolate. I don't want to talk to anybody because I feel hurt. I don't want anybody else to feel that hurt. Yeah. So I'm gonna just curl up in a little ball and that's it. But my fiance's like, nah, fuck that. I'm gonna text every single one of your boys and they're gonna come here. And people are gonna spend time with you. And people who give a shit about you are gonna be with you. And
so
at first, though, I was kind of like, great. Now I'm going to feel like the little pet at the zoo or hell, let's go visit mental health sick Matt, where you're only there for me because I'm not feeling well. And that's where it was at first. And I'm like, I know you guys care about me, but like, I feel like a goddamn zoo animal.
Yeah.
Took some time to be like, that's not the case, dude. People actually give a shit about you. Okay to not be okay and have people help lift you up when you're not feeling it. Yeah. And that's why, like, I say this now, and it was in that Submit the Stigma post where I'd rather be on the front end of your phone call, text, FaceTime, whatever, versus being in your funeral line. Yeah. And it's funny, I'd say that about other people, but had difficulty accepting it myself. And it just takes some time. Yeah. To like, not, we're talking about suicide, but like kill your ego. And it's just like, don't have one. There's nothing wrong with being vulnerable, being like, yeah, I guess I need meds. Yeah, maybe I should talk to a professional about my shit. So kind of just like letting myself vulnerable in that aspect. Yeah. That just made things that much better. So when I found the opportunity to and I've been following Erin, for a long time, I Submit the Stigma when I found jiu-jitsu, because I'm like, oh my God, martial arts and mental health, this is like the shit. So I followed her forever. And then when they asked for people to like post to share stories, I was like, you know what? I'm in a better spot. Let me drop the ego and post this. And that's what led us to being here. And it wasn't one of those like, I'm posting this so people can feel sorry for me. Fuck that. That's not my MO. I hate that, because first off, I didn't like when my friends came to visit me when I was feeling ill, because I'm like, I'm not attracting the zoo here. I'm more so, let me share my story, because one, it's almost like a
it's like permission.
Yeah, or like a Chester Bennington, like people, like famous people, Robin Williams, famous people that have killed themselves that are on the surface, you think they're happy as hell. Yeah. Nobody would have ever thought that Matt was suicidal.
Yeah.
Because he's the guy, when he walks into a room, lights up everybody else's face. And it's sharing that story not because of that, but also because to let it highlight that, yeah, guys can go through it too. And it's okay to be vulnerable and owning your shit.
Yeah.
And being like, you know, as a child, it's not my fault for what happened to me, but it's my responsibility as an adult to fix it.
Yes. This is
fix your shit. Fix your shit.
I say that all the time. Oh my gosh.
And it's like, it's not my fault I was sexually assaulted, but like, I as an adult can't now go like fornicate in public.
Yeah.
Like some traumas that you have translates into other stuff as you grow up. So again, if you had that history of being physically abused, you might be more apt to abuse your partner.
Yeah.
That's not okay. But it's going to take some like therapy or meds or processing shit to realize that's not okay though.
Yeah.
But that's all you know. Like, you got to be exposed to an objective professional being
the way that you were modeled to receive or give love.
Exactly. So
even if it looks really distorted on the surface, you can't really see it from that perspective because it's all that you were shown.
Yeah, you can't see the crossfire when you're in the trenches.
Yeah.
You know, you need a helicopter view to be like, oh yeah, you're going through some shit, but you don't realize it when you're going through it.
Yeah.
And especially as a child, which is why I love where I work. Because I work with 5 to 12-year-olds that come from different perspectives of risk profile behaviors, whether that be they've had thoughts of suicide, they've actually tried, they've engaged in some self-injurious behaviors. They're super aggressive at home, where they're beating the shit out of their parent or legal guardian and like running after their little sibling with a knife or whatever the case may be. 80% of that is a slew of trauma, where they've witnessed domestic or physical abuse, or they've been exploited, they've been assaulted, or X, Y, Z. Because no 7-year-old's just going to drop their pants in the middle of in public.
Yeah.
No 8-year-old is just going to like go defecate on the floor.
Yeah.
Granted, some of our friends that come in, they don't have an official diagnosis of, you know, whatever they have, whether it maybe, you know, being on the spectrum or having ADHD or whatever. And we're finally realizing that because their impulsivity required them to require inpatient hospitalization. But like 70% of it's trauma.
Yeah.
No natural child is going to act like that. For me, and this is where like almost not vicariously healing my inner child, but like, you know, I really hammer it on the little homies on my unit, where I'm like, dude, it's okay to talk about why you were angry. Don't feel stupid where you almost wanted to punch me in the face because you couldn't get your marker for a coloring activity.
Yeah.
When you were asked to wait, and I set a limit, which or like an expectation, whatever, and in result, you didn't like it, you will try to be aggressive towards me.
Yeah.
That's okay, because we're going to figure out why did you snap so fast.
Yeah. 100%.
You know, and it's okay to be angry. It's not okay to use the anger this way.
Yeah.
So I really try to hammer it home with the boys, because like the females that we have on the unit, most of them are okay with verbalizing their feelings and stuff like that. But our boys, a lot of them do have a hard time. And maybe because they're in a similar situation where I was in, where they're not allowed to talk their shit out. Or if they were a victim of something, who's going to believe the boy?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And it's there's really a lot of, as I know, the repercussions of it.
And like you said, that you're so connected to this work. And I think that the universe in some way brought it together for you to be able to give back to those boys, you know, that you can see yourself in, and realize that although you can't change your past, you have the ability to influence and make an impact on their life. And in that way, you said it is vicariously like working your inner child, because you're supporting them and giving them what they needed that they didn't receive from their original caretakers or That's beautiful work. How do you feel about that work? Like, do you feel like it's part of your purpose?
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, I love it. And I mean, I love when I did my clinical there in nursing school, I loved it and wanted to work there. Stars didn't align when I graduated to be able to. And then when the door, the opportunity rose, I was like, yeah, I'm hopping on this. Love it. Can it be frustrated at times when our kiddos are dysregulated? Yeah, of course. But if they were well behaved, they wouldn't be there.
Exactly.
Right. So as frustrated as I can be, when I get like a marker chucked at my head, I'm like, oh, dodge. But like, once you're not angry or want to kill yourself, let's talk it out. And it's okay to talk it out. Now, when I say talk, also just a quick sidebar, talking doesn't have to be your medium. If you don't like to talk, you can draw. If you don't like to talk, you can write. A lot of our kids, what I'll do, and I'm the silly goober, let's play it out. Because you may not be able to talk about how you're assaulted or talk about why you're angry, but you might be able to engage and play.
Yeah.
We do play therapy a ton in our unit because they're not old enough to potentially be able to talk about a sexual assault, but they're able to show you with action figures and Barbies.
Yeah. And playing is also very healing because like you experienced in your life, and I also experienced it to some degree as well. When kids grow up too fast, they never had the chance to actually be a kid. So kind of that play factor is completely taken out. They're almost like assumed as they kind of take on this role as the adult and just the responsible one and like all this type of thing. And they don't actually get to experience play, which is our only goal as a child. So being able to integrate that back in is so important for them to kind of just reconnect and be a kid. And I'd love for you said all these different modalities. Well, one of your purposes or missions that we had mentioned was potentially utilizing jiu-jitsu and being able to integrate this. Like, what do you see in that regard? And like, what are your like plans or vision, even if it's not immediate?
It's probably like an avalanche thing where it's like, I have this little spark of an idea that might be big, who knows? But I remember seeing, so I want to go back to school to get my to get my DNP. Ideally main goal is to teach university level. And then kind of maybe like private practice or work in an office, like 2 or 3 days a week, seeing patients XYZ. What I would really like to do, so part of that is I have to do some research / like have a thesis, whatever. And I remember seeing somebody post about being like a licensed mental health conditioner worker that was offering a jiu-jitsu focused therapy or something like that. And I was like, holy shit, I need to do that as part of my project. Because martial arts and studies have shown for many people has been a healthy outlet to be able to build self-confidence, build that mental, physical, spiritual fortitude.
Yes.
And again, it's not therapy, but it's a good bridge to being therapeutic for you, to where I would like to somehow translate that training within the pediatric behavioral health population, whether our kiddos have anxiety, PTSD, depression, whatever, not whatever, but whatever they got going on. As a nice bridge treatment modality where, the really anxious nerd who has no self-confidence can now throw a chokehold on somebody and somebody puts their hands on them. There's a gratifying feeling where like, I have the confidence where if you try to hurt me, I'm going to be able to defend myself. And I almost feel better knowing that I can do that, but I don't have to.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the funny part also, sorry, a little sidebar of like being the only kid doing martial arts. Like when I was in school or whatever, people would always want to pick a fight with me. And I'm like, no, stop. Like, I do this for me. This is fun. I don't want to beat you up.
Yeah.
Like, oh, come on. I'm like, no. Whether it's like one time a kid tested me in middle school, put their arm around me, and I just did like a Cianagi, just like shoulder throw. All of a sudden, you hear the gym go, boom. The Chuck Norris joke where the gym teacher's like, I got to give you a 0 for the day. And I'm like, cool. And then she talked to the other kid. It's like, nobody wants to punch Chuck Norris, dude. That's your own fault. Where I was like, all right, yeah. And never, it'd be like, kids don't get physical because they knew, like, okay, yeah, no, Matt can actually throw down. Yeah. And I never have to want to use it.
Yeah, 100%.
But it's, the old saying where it's like, it's better to be a warrior in a garden versus a gardener in a war.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I got the tools to throw down if I need to. But I'm going to do whatever tactic I can to like avoid that.
Yeah, so, 100%. I love that.
It's fun.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being here. I'd love to know, how can people connect with you? What's the best way to connect with you?
I'd probably say Instagram, I guess. Fairly active on it where, I'm cordial. I try to respond to anybody as fast as I can, or text, phone call, whatever. That Nurse Matt, punny with 2 T's on that part. In terms of training, our academy, so Danny Savery Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, it's on, I believe, 1135 Grand Army Highway. or GAR Highway in Somerset. So you find me on the mats. You can reach out and message to me, whatever way works. And I can always find other mediums, for contact.
Yeah. And I'll put that in the show notes, your Instagram handle. And lastly, I'd love to ask, what is your favorite takedown or submission?
Ooh.
Obviously, that's always ever evolving, but like right now, what comes up to mind?
Right now, we are huge into, from gi perspective, bow and arrow chokes, bicep slicers, and heel hooks.
Oh,
especially the bicep slicer from, being the smaller person, where somebody is like many of the people that I go with are stronger than me. When you get like the arm bar from side and they just hold like a vice grip, and I'm like, okay, right from there. Because it's either you're going to get your bicep torn out or you're going to let go and I'm going to finish the arm bar.
Yeah.
Heel hooks. I do love my leg locks.
Do heel hooks in the gi?
Huh?
Do you do heel hooks in the gi?
Oh, both. Yeah.
Okay.
100%. Where like, or sometimes like I'll bait it where people are like, and then I'll like finish my passing. Or if I'm feeling lazy that day and don't want to work hard on guard passing, I'm just going to like go for the leg lock. And then just bow and arrow chokes. Just, they're fun.
Classics.
Takedown. I would say been really into like the almost like an ankle pick where you grab their lapel, you push them, and then you scoop the back of their leg with your foot, capture. Or I have no wrestling experience, but a few of our guys are, where it's like arm drag into like that leg curl, where it almost like looks like the when you're in like reverse De La Riva, and then you leg curl and almost do like a knee bar to get them down. It's almost like that arm drag into that, like you curl your leg in as you go down and do that. So I've been like really loving.
Oh, I think you're thinking of I think it's called a gake. Are you talking
about
gake?
Yeah, probably like the actual terminology.
Like you're out of my brain. Your leg behind their leg, dropping it.
Yeah, yep. I do like an arm drag, and as I go in,
you're stabbing with the leg and extending.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that's a gake. Yeah.
Yep.
That's a good one.
So, been in love with those two. Just using those solidly.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. And I hope this gave other people some insight and some permission for themselves if they're struggling with, some of the things that, you've struggled with and that you've expressed other people struggle with, that they feel open or can reach out to get support and realize that support looks different for everybody.
Yeah.
Just got to find what works for you. And again, really just allow yourself to be vulnerable, let that ego aside to just get that support. And so I would love for you guys to share this episode to support somebody else in your life that could benefit from this. And if there's anything that you took away or insights, I'd love for you to tag us at Body by Boss LLC. I'll put Matt's Instagram in the show notes. And I hope that you guys have an amazing day, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye for now.
Have a good one. Thank you.